So here we are, Mariela, and I haven't seen you in a few months since we wrapped up our program at Landmark.
I'm so happy to see you, actually.
Yeah.
And it really was a wonderful thing for you to reach out and contact me.
Yeah, I'm making this podcast. The point of the podcast is to connect with people who have inspired me, who are people in my life and who I admire, who I've come in contact with or I've seen from afar, who are just living powerfully, who are human beings, who are going through the human condition, and yet at the same time, who are just really shining and stepping into their full power and doing incredible things. So I'm really happy that you had the time. I know you're quote unquote a busy person, which I know you always believe in the word busy, and we'll talk about that later on. But before we get there, I want us to to share with the people who are listening, the listeners, like, who is Mariela? Like, just take us back. Like, where's your story begin?
Okay, well, first, thanks for asking. I'm a Brooklyn girl, so that's where my story begins, in Brooklyn. And I was born and raised in Brooklyn. And I actually went to NYU. NYU was my school.
Mm-hmm. What'd you major in?
I majored in management and computer science. So I was a geek before that was even a word.
Yeah.
I was one of those people that loaded the cards into the big computer and then waited for the printouts to come out.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how it used to look at NYU.
That's right, kids. There were massive computers. They didn't fit in your hand as they do today.
Yes.
Right.
And I just got this wake-up call this week because I got a 40-year anniversary invitation. A 40-year anniversary of my graduation from NYU came in the mail this week, and I said, oh my, 40 years. It's been 40 years since I'm in school.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. And what I loved about what they presented was they took the opportunity to say, okay, we're going to celebrate that it's been 40 years, and now what's next for you? And I thought, wow, they kind of had me at hello. This is great. This is really great. Like we're always creating our life, and that's really what I stand for. So I love that they were actually focusing, and on that basis, I actually registered for a certificate
what kind of
in
certificate?
women's entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So,
beautiful.
like, kind of bringing it back to there, when I graduated from school, I was working in banking and finance. And particularly, I was in systems analyst, and kind of creating systems for processing different parts of banking. And I did that for a number of years. And then when my children were born, starting in 1985, I said, well, you know what? I want something more flexible. So I became an entrepreneur then. I became a consultant to banks and brokerage houses, and got really interested in how I could make my life work and have children, because I think that I have 4 children.
Incredible.
My husband now has 4 children, so we have 8 children together, 4 grandchildren, and they're important to me.
And you're still with this family that you still have. You're rocking out. You're an entrepreneur. You're running multiple businesses, perhaps, and you're accomplishing so much, and you do volunteering, and you run different programs yourself. So you have so much on your plate, and yet here you are. You always seem so calm, so collected, and it seems like nothing ever really phases you.
Well, you didn't see me this morning.
Okay, fair enough.
My hair was on fire this morning, but anyway, no, I got the world of it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So, like, how do you think? What does it take to be that? I know for myself, living in New York City and being surrounded by this culture of like hustle, and I found myself to always be busy. Even when I try to schedule myself with different, planners and executive assistants and such, I always feel like I'm always rushing to a certain spot, and I'm too busy for this, too busy for that. Meir, you're known to be a busy person. I want to stop that. I want to be in a place of calm and cool, collected. How do you get to that point? Is it just taking on less? Is it just not using the word busy? What would you say what that is?
So first, a really great question. So, the 2 of us have met through Landmark and through the Self-Expression and Leadership Program. And I think that really had a profound impact on me being able to take on things that gave me the feeling that my plate got bigger, and how that really works is to, first of all, work with and through others. So right now, at any point in time, you could say I probably got 7 or 8 projects going on.
Wow.
To impact different communities or different things in life that are important to me. For example, like what I discovered my life was for is that every person on this planet has a voice, and their voice is heard, and so I look at immigrants, I look at people who are in prison or just coming home from prison. I work with people who are refugees, Syrian refugees. Like, all of that is very important to me, that these people have a voice and they feel connected to the world, and that they belong.
How do you help people tap into that voice, find their voice?
Well, first of all, listening. I think listening makes a really big difference, and being curiously engaged in what's important to them and their dreams and their aspirations. And just being in that conversation, Meir, it has me be present. Like, I just get present in that moment, and I want to, I'm with them in their story and what's important to them. And that kind of takes my eyes off myself, which has me be, okay, I'm here and I'm present, and now I'm here and I'm present, and now I'm here and I'm present. But wherever I am, I'm with that person, because their voice is important to me. Mm-hmm. So it kind of helps me from feeling like I've got a lot of stuff going on at one point. So it may be, but I'm with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, you show up, and
yes.
you're listening. Where you don't find yourself struggling with, and I know for myself that you're maybe with somebody, and I actually admire how, while we're talking right now, you hold eye contact, and I could tell that you're here with me. Though I do find that when I do have conversations with many people, their eyes are moving around and they're thinking about the next thing, and many people in conversation I experience that they're waiting to answer. Mm-hmm. Right, they're waiting to just get what they want to say through without actually listening. So is that the kind of listening you're talking about?
Yes, it's listening like that is the first level of it, I would say.
Okay.
But also listening for rather than listening to is it's a really important thing that I got actually through the work that we've both done at Landmark, and that is, I'm listening for people's greatness. I'm listening for what's important to them, where they're inspired, where they are just like elevated and lifted and alive and enlivened by who they are for themselves. That's what I'm really interested in. And so everything that will have them touch that in a conversation is something I'm listening for. So, for example, if I hear you say, you're talking about your work and the work that you do, and I've seen some of your videos, yes, which are both funny and inspiring and heartwarming and all of that. And when I talk to you about that, I see that it lights you up.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes,
my passion.
Yeah, so that's what I'm really on that sort of treasure hunt to find out what lights a person up in their life. What really inspires them, and then we're in that moment together. When I'm sitting with you, I'm in that moment together, sharing that thing that lights you up, and it's transformative, and it just transports me, into their world. So
once you have that light, so once you've listened and you listened for, and you're connecting with that person, it's a feeling, it's up, and maybe it's an idea. How do you help someone bring it down to actuality, right? We have all these great ideas, and I forgot who said it. I heard it from Les Brown, who said the greatest ideas can be found at the graveyard. So how does one who finds himself being passionate and sometimes even motivated, how does one bring that down to action?
Sure. So actually, you hit the nail on the head. It is action, right? So we actually, in the work that I do when I'm working with different communities, I'm always looking for what's going to move this forward. What is the call to action, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, as you said, the biggest ideas are not acted on. And I think what makes a difference is to take that big elephant idea and move it down into pieces that people can bite.
Right.
So, like if we deal with a big issue, homelessness, big issue in New York City.
Yeah, okay, very passionate about that, sure.
As you are, and I know you are.
Yes,
I know you are. I know a lot of your videos are addressing that, and bringing homeless people into the community.
And community awareness, and just bringing back the human dignity and connection between the homeless and the homeless people, the whole people experiencing homelessness, and the community. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and since I've been walking the streets of Manhattan, it's definitely progressed.
Sure.
Just more and more of that. Yeah. And you see people of all ages and, all situations. So for me, it's a big issue. Like when you think about it and you talk about it to someone, they could say, well, what could one person do? Yeah. Like how could I make an impact on this big problem? And, what I support people in doing is taking a look at well, what would move it forward? What would move a piece of it forward? What could we handle in the next month? What could we handle in the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 1 year? And really just taking a look at that aspect of it and looking how, if we put something in place, it would make a specific and measurable difference for the situation. So if we have 150 people that had no warm winter coat, and we collect 150 coats, and now they have coats, well, we made a difference for those 150 people.
Right.
Is it going to get them off the streets? No, but it makes a difference right now. It makes them comfortable and gives them a way to live another day, more comfortably. So that's the idea. Like, I'm looking at what we can do that will move it forward, and then that one action or that one series of actions calls other people into the conversation, and they say, wow, we could actually impact this, or we could impact that, and they see a way that they could bring their piece into it. And then before we know it, it's a rather large conversation, but we didn't start from the large.
Right.
We started from what we can accomplish today,
Right.
And where we could see that difference being made. So I think that's the focus of it. And when people are inspired to do that thing, so I find that people really want to take that action and make a difference. They don't always know how, but when we give them that bite that they can chew, yes, I can donate a coat, or I can donate pajamas to women that are coming home from prison, or I can support someone in organizing their home.
Sure.
So I can, whatever that is, I can make that difference. So then I'm empowered because I made that difference, and I can make the next difference or speak to other people about it, and they will come in. So I think that's it. It's really, making it small enough.
It seems like most people, and I know I've dealt with it in the past, where I get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed by the idea of it all, and not breaking it down to scenarios. And also like the idea of what can I do? Or just sort of throwing your hands up in the air. Yes, this would be great if, or so, or but, and then the excuses are coming in, and who can I be and who am I to make such radical change? However, sometimes there's, I really love the language that I took away from Landmark was making unreasonable requests, right? Unreasonable demands from yourself, from other people, from the world. And I would love to hear your take on explaining that. But most people say, you have to be reasonable. You have to be reasonable. This is the kind of world that we live in. What does it mean to be unreasonable?
Okay, that's a really great question, right? So we distinguish, at least what I've seen in, distinguishing this unreasonable request is distinguishing between something that's dangerous or not really doable. You could say it's unreasonable to fly out the window. Well, of course, you know what the end of that's going to be. But mostly you and I are just stopped by the reasons we give why someone else wouldn't do something. So, example, if I want to...
I'll say that one more time for the listeners.
Mostly we're stopped from the reasons we give why someone else wouldn't do something.
Powerful.
So, in that respect, I have all these reasons in my head why my boss is not going to give me a raise. So I don't ask. I don't make the request. And that's already a ceiling to what's actually possible. But if I say to myself, all right, where am I standing here? I'm standing in the value I produce. I'm standing in my boss's commitment to me. I'm standing in the organization's commitment that my good work is rewarded. And based on all of that, I look and I see, what would be a powerful request to make that would be inside of all of that, all of that stand. And then I make that request. And I also keep in mind that when I'm making a request, it's not a demand. So I think the really big thing is that, most of us hear a request as a demand. And most of us make a request that's kind of couched as a demand, right?
Sure.
And which, in fact, there's only two possible outcomes for that, right? If I'm demanding, it's either you're going to be a yes, you'll be backed into a corner, or you're going to disappoint me or cause an upset, right?
Correct.
Whereas if it's a request, you can accept my request, you can decline my request, or you can make a counter offer. You can say, well, I'm not actually going to go and volunteer with you for the entire day on Saturday, but you can have me for 2 hours. Okay.
There's more flexibility.
Yes.
There's no ultimatum there. Yeah.
Exactly. So in the space of request, I'm free to make the request because I'm clear I'm not backing you into a corner. I'm leaving you plenty of room. And you, on the other hand, are free to accept, decline, or counter offer. So in the whole conversation, there's nothing about upset. There's nothing about you can't disappoint me because there are 3 valid outcomes to this conversation. So you can't disappoint me. And that helps people to kind of dance in the conversation, and every conversation brings value and fulfillment. No reason why not.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what inspires Mariela? What inspires you?
Great question. So first, people's courage. People's courage really, really inspires me. Like what it takes for a human being in the world we're living in. So much stimulation, from the outside, and some of it's really, challenging, extremely challenging. And the world's coming at us fast and furious. And the courage that people have to make a difference, to kind of create themselves newly every morning, however that looks,
Yeah.
and to get up and really, really make a difference in the world and people's commitment to one another. It's always there. Sometimes we have to just have them experience and be acknowledged for it, but it's always there. And that inspires me.
Is there a specific person or someone out there that had a profound effect on your life, living or dead, that moved, touched, or inspired you?
Wow, there are many.
Yeah.
But I would say, I think most profoundly are my parents. 2 very generous human beings. And I was raised with a lot of love. And they've been my inspiration my whole life.
Beautiful. What kind of girl were you in high school?
Oh, what a great question!
Yeah, I'm curious to know. Like you're like this woman now. You're doing amazing things. You're a powerhouse. What before all this? Were you like this? Did you have this mindset and attitude back in high school, or was this something you developed later on in your life?
No, it was definitely there. I would say one of the things that I think had a really big effect on me growing up is I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school all my grammar school and my high school. And my high school was a small Catholic school, St. Xavier High School. Actually, Bernie Sanders' wife went to the same high school.
All right, shout out.
Yes, shout out. And it was a small school. We had 67 people in our graduating class.
Oh, wow.
And what we got there was that there's nothing a woman can't do. We never had a conversation about, gee, we need to bring in a man to do this.
And this was, we're talking about,
Yeah.
Would you think this was like sort of forward thinking? Was this the kind of conversations that were taking place during that time?
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, it didn't occur to me as forward thinking because it was just
what you were in?
How I was in
Sure.
at the moment, like how I was raised or cultivated or whatever. But I think when I look back on it, my girls went to the same high school. When I look back on it, I realize this was an extraordinary conversation.
Sure.
And I feel really blessed to have been so free in my high school that I didn't have to think about whether my makeup was on right or, if I was dressed to be attractive to a boy, or should I put my hand up when I answered a question about science or computers or whatever. No, I was just really free to be myself. And I gave that gift of education to my girls as well, and they've thanked me so many times over for that influence of there's nothing you can't do.
Correct. And it's, I know you've had a massive hand, and this is something you're very passionate about, empowering women especially. You had a project about building homes in Africa for a little bit. Were you involved with something like that?
Well, it wasn't building homes,
Okay.
actually, but thanks for asking. It's a Women's Centers International.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Yes, it's in, we built a women's center that now has over 500 women participating in the Women's Center. And this is in the Kariua slums, which it's the largest slum in all of Africa, and it's in Nairobi. And
Kenya, okay.
Yes, and I actually have never been there, but I was very instrumental in starting this project with Susan Burgess-Lint, who's actually our executive director, and she was the founder of this organization. And what those women got from going to that women's center was first a sense of collaboration, support, a listening of them as really people that can do anything. And what has come out of it is they've started so many small businesses, whether that business be that they buy a lot of laundry detergent and they sell it into little packets, to people to do their laundry, or something larger than that. But they have economic freedom. And what's very important about the work that we did there is for every dollar that's earned by a woman in Africa, the United Nations says that 100% of that dollar goes to the betterment of her family. Whereas actually, every dollar earned by a man, only 40% of it goes to the betterment of the family. So the United Nations says if we want to make a difference, it's women and technology that will make the difference.
Yeah, and empowering them and building those infrastructures and those roles, helping them get to that place.
Yes.
That's really incredible.
Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm curious to know, what initiated this commitment to self-development and growth? When did that begin for you?
Well, I think entrepreneurs are always reinventing ourselves. It's kind of our stock in trade,
Well, entrepreneurship, I feel like this day and age also can be translated in so many different ways. I feel like today you go on social media, everybody's an entrepreneur. How do you define entrepreneurship? Like, what makes an entrepreneur?
Well, I would, it's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, but what I would say is that it's from taking something from an idea, from something that you see value in, and actually enrolling and registering other people in the opportunity of that, whether that be customers, employees, investors, suppliers, that people see the value in it, and now they are part of a community bringing this idea to fruition, like fulfilling on the dream of it. And so that started for me back in 1985. And there have been so many opportunities to do that, and my husband and I have been in business together since 1998.
Really?
Yes, we have.
You're in business together and your relationship together. How's that work? I mean, that seems like a red flag right there.
It would be normally, right? And let's just say that there are red flags have flown, for sure. And generally what actually, it brings us together, it brings us closer. We have constantly been involved in creating something together, and it energizes our relationship, and people are energized around us by the relationship, and I just count that as such a huge blessing in my life.
It must be, because I feel like most people who go into business with a loved one, with a partner, usually doesn't last, and it could be really damaging for that relationship. So what kind of boundaries do you set, or what kind of how do you make that work?
Well, I would say that the advent of Landmark into our lives individually so impacted our business relationship. So that started in 2007. My husband Zevi did the Landmark Forum a month before me that summer, and then I did it. And so what we really distinguished was how to see the pattern where things aren't working. As an example, all of us work on assumptions. So an assumption could be, that person, my partner, will understand why I'm doing this thing. Mm-hmm. Or it's clear to them.
Yeah, it'll be something obvious, right?
Yes,
they'll get it.
Obvious. It's the next action to take. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we can't communicate enough. Like what I've discovered is that there's, and the always way is to kind of think it to yourself and think that it got out there to the other person. Well, just having a discipline around communication, and that's a mountain with no top. I know I'll never get to the top of that mountain, but we have that opportunity daily to really take ground on communicating and asking, and every day making a little bit less of an assumption about something and just saying, does this work for you? This is what I see, and using that kind of language where people feel engaged, and most importantly for partners, that they feel like, well, there's an opportunity to talk something out and create something here versus it's done, like take it or leave it, So I think that constant pull to create something and cause that has, inspired our relationship to get deeper and deeper. My husband's my soulmate, and I don't know a whole lot of people that can say that, but we've taken the opportunity of working together and just really counted that as a blessing in developing our relationship.
So on the topic of relationships, communication is key. Everybody knows that communication is key. It takes hard work, but communication. What are some tips? Maybe 3 tips that people maybe assume that they're communicating across, but they're not really communicating. Like, what are some ways that people can elevate who are in relationships to elevate their communication?
Okay, good. So I would say the first thing is to listen more and speak less, right? To ask more questions and get the answers. And how you get the answers, like how I've been trained now that works for me, is to kind of recreate what the other person says. So what I heard you say is, it's a skill that is so simple and it means so much, and it really has you experience that I got your communication. I don't have to agree with it, and I don't have to add to it. I don't have to make it more of what it is. But if I just get it, if I just get your communication, you experience being gotten, then we've come to a place where you can hear what I'm going to say. Otherwise, what's already there is you getting ready. If you've ever been in sales training, if they say this, you say this, like the objections, right? Yeah, say this, and actually have that not be that. In any communication, in any conversation, I have no idea what you're going to say. And coming from that I have no idea what you're going to say, and I'm really interested. Like, I'm waiting to be surprised and delighted by what you're saying. That's so not the way human beings listen to one another. And that's, I can say that maybe I'll do that like 5% of the time, but it's more than it ever was. So, and I take ground on that every day. So I think that makes a difference. So I would say listen and recreate people, like just getting their communication. And what you're going to say really is so much less important. What I've discovered, what I'm going to say is so much less important than what I'm going to hear from you and what I'm going to get from you. So I'm really interested all along the way in what you have to say. And the other thing I would say is that I think it's very, very important to look on a daily basis of where I withheld a communication. There was something to say that if I said it, it would make a difference. It may make me feel uncomfortable to say it. It may make you feel uncomfortable to hear it. But in general, that's what's going to bring us closer together. That's going to really have us be profoundly related versus I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and hope that you got it or hope that it will resolve itself.
Going back to the assumptions or thinking, but it's not clear to the other person.
Not at all.
And then in that clarity, things will get very, very disarray and confused. Mm-hmm. Got that. Very cool. That landed. That's great. Okay. That's really great. So when it comes to so if someone feels stuck in life right now, if someone feels that they have ideas and they have too many ideas, perhaps, right? They're being pulled from all sides. Maybe a creative type or an entrepreneur, right? They have like all these ideas they want to bring to life. How does one prioritize what to focus their energy on first?
Okay, well, the short answer to that question is I have no idea, right? You would prioritize. But I would say this, like we have an equation in our mind that if I have an idea, bringing it to fruition is something I have to do.
Yeah, sure.
Like that's the equation. Like I have an idea and I have to bring it to fruition. Well, actually, what I've discovered is it so doesn't have to be me that brings it to fruition. If I have an idea, if I see that something is valuable, I can have a conversation with you and other people, and I can say, look, this is what I'm seeing, and I think this will make a huge difference. What do you see? And then now you are inside of this idea. You're exploring it. You're looking at, what would it look like if this thing was brought to life? And then you might say, well, I'm going to take this on. Or I'm going to take this on, or I see this one, or you know what, I know this guy, and we can call him, and he's already doing this, and now, he could incorporate this, and that would just bring this whole thing to another level. Mm-hmm. So coming back to earlier in our conversation where I said I have about 7 or 8 projects going on at any one time in life, at least. That's how that looks. What I'm what I'm looking for is, who can I talk to? Who can I share these ideas with? Who can I share something with that they might be inspired by that and take that on to another level? And all that's needed from me is to leave them, in action with that thing. Not that I asked them to be in action, but they took it on and move on to the next thing.
So you don't shy away from collaboration at all?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And it's the magic. The magic is collaboration. We are just so much stronger together. And I've discovered that over and over and over again. And how I think that things could be manifested is only just one way. Just from what I see right now. It has nothing to do with what is actually possible when more people get involved and now get underneath this idea, and it has a life of its own. So we say that the possibility of this idea, or the possibility of this project, is now living in the community so much bigger than it lived in my head.
Sure. So it's interesting how you build this like conversation with people, like, where it seems like it's less of asking somebody for something, rather you're just like sharing with them, like, hey, this is what I'm up to, this is my idea, and you're just like enrolling them. That's another landmark term right there. But you're really enrolling them in this possibility to be partner up with that. But I would say, being in this position of entrepreneurship and when you're having all these ideas and projects going on, you must, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you must be coming up to a lot of no's and walls as well.
Sure.
How do you get by that? How do you get through that and keep going without losing momentum?
Sure. So first thing that has made a difference for me in my training and development, and again through Landmark, has been really getting that the no has nothing to do with me.
Don't take it personal.
Yeah, don't take it personally. Like, that no is a possible response to the request or to the sharing. And from there's a yes to something. Yes, this would work, or I know this person, or whatever. So if I take the long view of whatever I'm up to, this possibility, this idea getting fulfilled in the world, that no is nothing on the way to it. It's just one thing that didn't work on the way to what is working. So
what do you think is stopping people when they get that no? Why do you feel like people, lose that momentum?
Because they take it personally. It's they hear the no as, that person said no to me. I'm no good. I'm not enough.
Or the idea is bad.
That's
not good
a bad
enough.
idea, right? That's a bad idea.
That sort of feeds into the dialogue of their already existing self-doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? The first thing to get is, we're all wired that way.
With the negative thoughts and...
Yeah, like that no already translates, it goes through the brain instantly as something against survival. Like, we as human beings have a wiring about what survival looks like. And survival looks like yes, 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 yes. And then when we get no, it's like, oh, wait a minute. And the brain doesn't distinguish between lion running at me with his mouth open and, no, I'm sorry, I won't do that with you. Looks like exactly the same thing to our brain. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing we can do about that wiring. Wiring will be there until we close our eyes for the final time. But if we can just distinguish that, oh, that's my brain going to work again on that thing. And if I can just acknowledge that really had nothing to do with me, it's just the person just said no. And the more I practice that, the more power I have over it. It's going to happen. It'll always happen every single time. But how fast could I short circuit that? That's what I'm interested in.
And the more you practice that and more you live that, then that instinct comes. But then you're like, wait a second, you pull out, refocus, and then you attack again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just really, it comes from, so I got the attack, right? I prefer dancing.
Oh, okay.
In the conversation, I'm dancing. Like, what's going to touch, move, and inspire you around this project? And for me, the conversation is a dance. Right. To see where we come to, where we're now both, a friend once gave this analogy, like eating that warm apple pie together. We're both enjoying the warm apple pie, and we're on the same page, and you're inspired, and now you're going to take that forward, or not. But, we had that experience where you were left energized, inspired, enlivened by who you are in the world. I was left that way. And, there's either a yes or a no involved.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
It's clear as you move forward from that. So throughout this conversation with you, which I'm enjoying very, very much, the word landmark has come up a lot. Mm-hmm. And for those who are listening, some may know what that is, a landmark. Some maybe just think it's like maybe they can know the Statue of Liberty or a landmark where they're just walking down the street. Like, hey, I'll meet you at that landmark. So let's just give us some context. What is landmark? What is this landmark that we've been talking about? What is landmark for you, and how did you get involved, and why did you get involved?
Sure. So Landmark is a personal training and development organization, a global organization. And
how many around the world? How many?
So what I have understood is more than 50 locations around the world.
Wow.
And so for me, I got involved in 2007. I was introduced to Landmark's program by my executive coach. I was leading a global company, and I had been coached by this woman for 6 months, and my business closed. It failed, actually, and the business failed, and we and the other investors lost a total of $21 million.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Okay.
And I was the CEO of the company. I was devastated. Each of those people that had invested their money, I spoke with them. So it was my conversations. And I saw that very much as a personal failure. And, I didn't see that I could trust myself again to run anything, really. So I had that conversation with my coach, that final coaching session we had. And I said to her, look, I just don't know how I can go forward. I want to do something that has no risk, because I don't want to end up with this outcome again. And she said to me, look, that's a possible thing to do, is to go forth and create a life where you're not going to be able to recreate this failure, right? She said, or what you could do is just powerfully complete the past and just put that past in the future, like it has no more power over you.
Put that past in the future?
I mean, put the past in the past. I apologize.
Yeah, sure, no problem, yeah.
Put the past in the past.
Yeah.
And so it has no more power over you, and create from nothing, like going forward. And I didn't understand what the heck she was saying, really. It just sounded like a lot of mumbo jumbo to me.
Yeah.
But I went, because I trusted her. And she said to me, in one weekend, you can actually get that past complete and create whatever you want next.
Well, doesn't automatically the past already sit in the past? Isn't the past in the past? Like what does that actually mean?
Well, for human beings, really it doesn't. And this is some of what I've discovered in my work there at Landmark. It's that, the simple example would be, you're a child. You're sitting in class.
Yes.
Teacher asked you a question, to answer who was the first president of the United States, and you wave in your hand, and then you go Lincoln, right?
Yeah.
And then no.
Story of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then everyone laughs in class.
Yeah.
About your answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to ask you right now, Meir, what do you say to yourself when everyone's laughing?
I'm not smart. I close up. I feel insecure. I don't raise my hand as often. I mean, absolutely.
So you just said it right then. You just said, I'm not going to raise my hand as often. Mm. So in your brain, remember we were talking about survival.
Right.
Say, not putting myself in that position again. Unless I'm 1,000% sure of the answer, and even then, I may not answer.
Right.
Okay? So that's us as human beings. We're animals. That path was dangerous. I'm not going there again. So we are wired that way. But you can see that as you get older, just having those conversations. Something happens and you go, not doing that again, not having my heart broken that way, not. There's just so many knots that in the end, what's actually available to you is kind of a small life. Like a life that is only bounded by trying not to do the same things again. And in fact, by doing that, we are recreating the same situation over and over and over again. It has a lot of power over us. Mm-hmm. So what is possible in the first course of the Landmark Forum is to have that past.
So for you, how did it take place?
Yeah. So the first, I'm going to tell you what happened with the situation of the $21 million.
Yeah.
So it was the Saturday of the Landmark Forum, and I really got...
The forum is over 3 days, Friday, Saturday,
Saturday, and Sunday, and Tuesday evening.
Yes.
So I really got on Saturday that the fear that I had of what could happen, well, that thing that I said could happen had already happened. And I didn't have to give it power over me going forward. So I was able to, on Monday, I called every investor.
Wow. And you've been avoiding them, I'm sure.
Oh, damn. Absolutely avoiding them, right? And I really just wanted to like go away and not ever have to talk to anyone again. But I proactively called them, and I took responsibility for everything that I did that was not effective as a manager. All the times I hadn't listened to people, all the times I knew things without asking or consulting. And the last person I called, and people were great about it, really. They were wonderful. It was like I took responsibility as a privilege, not as a blame. Mm-hmm. And they were great about it. And the final call that I made was to my largest customer who had lost $450,000 just in the last week. He sent us money and it went into that big hole. Oh, and I was able to call him and take responsibility. And there was just silence on the end of the phone. Wow. His name was John.
He was not expecting that.
He said to me, wow. Like, I just didn't think that you had the guts to say that. Mm-hmm. He said, so I'm just kind of blown away. And in that conversation, like, I acknowledged all that he had really wanted to contribute to me that I deflected because I knew what was better. And in that conversation, at the end of the conversation, he said, let's restart this business together.
Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
he wired $3 million.
Incredible. Wow. So you just by showing up, by facing that fear, mm-hmm. you really created a whole new reality, which you never wouldn't have otherwise.
A whole new reality.
That's insane. And I could definitely back that up. I mean, so we met through the Landmark program, and I had was going through. I didn't lose $20 million, but I was going through my own struggles in the sense of just being in a very dark place mentally. I was depressed and very confused, not so much clarity, not in great communication with my family, close and far, even with friends. I was losing touch, and I was at wit's end. I was just burnt out with therapists and such, and I heard about Landmark. A friend of mine mentioned it to me. I went for the weekend, and it opened up so many doors for me over that weekend, over that forum, which made me want to go back for the advance and through the SELP, the Self-Expression and Leadership Program, which we met through. And it was really, I've grown a lot through the program, where it just opened just my mind to different perspectives. A really big one, which was integrity, and the language is how they use integrity is just so clear and so rings so true. I found it annoying, and they're so obsessed when it comes to the timing, and we where we would literally come back, we'd have a break between the different talks and exercises, and we'd come back and we'd be waiting around till the last person to come into the room, and it'll be, let's say, 5 minutes later, maybe 6 minutes later, or maybe 10 minutes late, and the leader would not move on, and we would sit on for another 30 minutes after the last person came, discussing about why we were late and what that all meant. And it really boggled my mind, like, why are we wasting our time? We have to get through this program. We signed up. We have, I know it's going to be over tonight at 9 p.m. And through that, obviously realizing coming in what was expressed was that it's, integrity. When we said we'd come back at a certain time, we said that we gave our word to it, right? We said we'd come back at 3:45. If we come back at 3:46, is there really much of a difference between, coming late by 1 minute or 10 minutes? No, you're late. You didn't show up. And now what can be done in that situation, I learned, was to take responsibility. Of course, to prepare myself to come on time. And the case which that does not happen is, of course, to also take responsibility of not make excuses. It's the subway, the phone call, the coffee was too hot, I burnt my tongue. Those are all excuses, right? To take responsibility of the situation. And that was just one lesson I learned from just coming on time. So I realized through my relationships with people and the communications I was having was like, I was just a lot of avoidance, a lot of pushing responsibility on other people, not showing up in my own life. So it was really transformative, I would say, which for me, going through the program, and it really opened up a lot of doors. And I've been really since then committed to self-development and just working on myself, and I've been seeing some really great changes throughout my life. Anything to add around that?
There's not much to add because it's just perfectly captured in what you said. But I would think one distinction to make here is that, kind of how we think about integrity is that it's morality or ethics or good or bad or right or wrong, and that the distinction integrity at Landmark is really just the state of being whole and complete, and relating to that as the platform for workability, like how things have an opportunity to work if we're all there on time, or if we've done the homework, or right, and that's only training for your life, really.
Sure.
If you arrived for this interview 3 hours late, we wouldn't have the opportunity, that we have now, because you arrived more than on time. You were early. You were in communication. All of that makes a really big difference in life, and we don't always operate that way. So,
right.
Yeah. So we've gotten trained in that, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. I was one, I would come late to everything and rushing, and when I show up, I'd be full of anxiety. And while I was going there, I was full of anxiety. Not just that, while I was coming late and being anxious, I would build these stories around, the person, how upset they would be, and this, and like, it was just, this ruined my day and my mindset and everything. And so 100%, I mean, thank you for bringing, that's a really cool example. But it's something to be proud about, and about coming on time, and how it just really, even something it seems so insignificant and small, has such a massive effect throughout my own peace of mind, and just workability throughout the day, and connecting with people. So that's been really incredible. And I mean, even, the programs have been really incredible, but what sort of, I would say, maybe bothers me, I do keep an open mind, and of course everybody has their journey, but I know when people go online and they look up, I share a Landmark with some people, they search on Google as anybody would, and there's some negativity that goes around that. There's words like cult, and people have certain, negative experiences around that. Through your experience, what do you think that comes from? What do you think that lies? And what would you tell people about the program, and how it affected you? And what would you like to share from that?
Sure. So in reference to what's online and what might be negative there, what I know is that the biggest voices saying the word cult are people who never did the program.
Mm-hmm. And they actually showed up.
No, they were never there. So that, for me, once I realized that, I kind of discounted all of that. But I'll tell you from my own personal experience, and I know for yours, this program actually helped me get connected to the people in my life. And the biggest example for me, and this is morning one of the Landmark Forum for me, Friday morning, is my son. So my son was 14 years old when his father and I got divorced. He went to live with his dad, and 8 years went by very, very quickly, where I considered him to be dangerous. He made that choice right after that. He, got in trouble with the law. He started using drugs. He dropped out of school. All of those things happening. And for those 8 years, our relationship was extremely distant. But in my mind, it was handled. Mm-hmm. Like, he was not causing trouble. Thank you very much. So we had this kind of worked out. But I was not able to be with the pain of missing my child. It was not in my life. And the Landmark Forum had me, morning one, recognize that that's not what I'm committed to. First, to see it for what it was. That it was me not being able to be with him, making the choice to go with his dad, and then taking actions that had him leave home and had him feel not included, right? And not like a blame, but some place to stand. So now we are so profoundly connected. In fact, he came back after he did the Landmark Forum, a couple of weeks after I did it. He came back to live with me.
Oh, wow.
As a 22-year-old, and lived with us for 7 years. So the idea here is Landmark brings us closer to the people in our lives. They certainly, the first thing that we're addressing is a relationship with our parents. Sure. So fundamental. So
what's a project now that you're working on that you're passionate about, that you're excited to share with us?
Okay, well, two
different projects. Of course.
Two projects that I'm excited about. So in the world of nonprofit, I do a lot of work with people who are in prison and people who are coming home from prison. And my commitment is that people have a successful reentry. They have a successful inclusion back into society, and they're experiencing themselves as people who can make a contribution, and that contribution is valued, and they feel included. So on that basis, we have a number of 16 and 17-year-olds that have come off Rikers Island recently. They were moved in October, and they are people being held waiting for their trial, or they're serving a very short sentence. And what's predictable with them is many people are dropouts from high school. About 80% of them are dropouts from high school. So what's the future that they're living into? It's not really a great, rosy future. So we, an organization, Network Support Services, that I'm board chair of, we are actually engaged in working with Cornell University on bringing urban farming to the 2 juvenile detention facilities where they're being housed, one in the Bronx and one in Brooklyn.
Wow, amazing.
And that urban farming includes regular farming. It includes hydroponic farming, learning to farm without soil, which is our future on this planet, and also raising animals. So we're looking at either chickens or rabbits and having them be able to bring that conversation to their families, right? Wow. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is our business. Actually, we are now producing infrared cameras that will have people driving down the dark road at night be able to see 4 times further than their headlights.
Wow.
And that's a project that my husband and I are, as I said, entrepreneurs. This is our current project, and it's called Night Ride.
Night Ride.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Mariela, you have such a person I could say you've had an incredible effect in my life, helped me and guided me, and really love all that you shared today. And it's just like through your actions of the projects that you're involved with, you really are truly a stand for people who don't have a voice or who have lost their voice. Help to find the voice, really stand for that and help them, bring it back on with a megaphone and share it with the world. So thank you so much for sharing with us and taking the time to be with us today, and much success in all that you're doing.
Thank you. My privilege, Meir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.